The dismissal, the grand assembly hall of the Galactic Concordat, hung suspended in the void between three stars, a monument to technological supremacy that had stood for 12,000 years. Within its crystalline walls, representatives from 147 civilizations gathered in emergency session. At the center of the chaos stood Ambassador Marcus Reeves, humanity's voice in a chamber that had never truly listened. 23 colonies, Marcus said, his voice cutting through the cacophony of alien dialects and translation matrices. 23 human settlements burned to ash in the past 14 months. 47,000 dead. And this council has done nothing. High Magistrate Zorathil of the Keithan hegemony, one of the 5 ancient powers that dominated the Concordat, raised a crystalline appendage dismissively. Its thoughts rippled across the translation field with barely concealed contempt. Humanity asks for intervention, yet refuses to adopt proper defensive measures. Your continued reliance on kinetic projectiles is ... quaint. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Not the malicious kind, but worse, the patronizing amusement reserved for children, who insisted on playing with wooden toys when antimatter warheads existed. Kinetics, echoed Ambassador Thelshar of the Vryn Collective, its bioluminescent form pulsing with mirth. Metal slugs propelled by chemical reactions. We abandoned such primitiveness 8 millennia ago. Perhaps if humanity invested in plasma lance technology, or at minimum gravitic disruptors. We've presented our defense budget, Marcus interrupted, his jaw tight. We've shown you our industrial capacity. We don't have the exotic matter reserves for plasma systems. We don't have access to zero-point energy for gravitic weapons. We work with what we have. Then you work with inadequacy, Zorathil replied. The Keithan's crystalline structure refracted the ambient light into rainbow patterns, a display that usually signified finality. The Concordat cannot expend resources defending every species that refuses to modernize. The raiders attacking your colonies use second-generation energy shields. Your kinetic weapons are simply absorbed. This is not the Concordat's failure. It is humanity's. Marcus felt the weight of history pressing down on him. 50 years. 50 years since humanity had achieved faster-than-light travel and stumbled into a galaxy already carved up, already ancient, already certain of its superiority. 50 years of being the new species, the primitive species, the species that still used gunpowder derivatives and called it military technology. He remembered his first week as ambassador. 7 years ago. He'd been so hopeful. Humanity would learn, would grow, would earn its place among the stars through diplomacy and determination. The Concordat would see humanity's potential, would embrace Earth's children as partners. Instead, he'd spent 7 years watching human expansion requests denied, trade agreements blocked, technology transfers restricted, always with the same explanation. When humanity demonstrates sufficient technological advancement, we can discuss further integration. And now, with human civilians dying by the thousands, the ultimate dismissal. Your deaths are your own fault for being primitive. We asked for protection under the Concordat Charter, Marcus said quietly. Article 7, subsection 3. All member species are entitled to mutual defense against external aggression. Article 7 assumes the endangered species has made reasonable efforts at self-defense, countered Magistrate Orval of the Hierophant Communion, a being of pure energy contained within a magnetic scaffold. Reasonable is defined by galactic standards, not by individual species limitations. Humanity's refusal to abandon outdated kinetic systems does not constitute reasonable effort. The chamber murmured agreement. Marcus could see it in every gesture, every translator field fluctuation. The decision had been made before he'd even spoken. The Concordat would not help. Humanity was alone. Then we're done here, Marcus said. He began gathering his data tablets. Physical devices that had drawn snickers from ambassadors who used quantum-encoded thought matrices. "Ambassador Reeves," Zorathil called out, its voice carrying what might have been genuine curiosity. "What will humanity do now? Surely you don't intend to continue your futile kinetic defense against energy-shielded raiders?" Marcus paused at the chamber exit. He looked back at the assembled Power's ancient species who had built wonders, who commanded technologies that seemed like magic, who had forgotten what it meant to be desperate. "We'll handle it," he said simply, "with kinetics." Felshar-S bioluminescence pulsed in amusement. "With your quaint metal projectiles?" "With what we have," Marcus replied. "You might want to pay attention. You might learn something." The laughter followed him out of the chamber. Behind him, he heard Zorathil's final pronouncement, delivered with the certainty of species that had ruled the stars for millennia. "Humanity still believes metal can defeat energy. How adorably primitive. Perhaps in another 1,000 years, they'll discover plasma." The chamber dissolved into diplomatic small talk. The human crisis already forgotten. Marcus walked through the corridors of the assembly hall, passing windows that looked out onto impossible vista stars bent by gravitational lensing, nebulae compressed into viewing frames. The casual display of power that said we can manipulate reality itself. His secure communicator vibrated. He stepped into a privacy alcove and activated the quantum encryption. "They said no," he reported without preamble. Admiral Sarah Chun's face appeared in the hologram, transmitted across 40 light years in real time through quantum entanglement, one of the few advanced technologies humanity had managed to reverse engineer. Her expression was grim but unsurprised. "We anticipated that," she said. "The Colonial Defense Committee voted an hour ago. Project Godstrike is authorized. We're proceeding to live fire." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. Godstrike. 3 years of classified research. $4 trillion of Earth's GDP. Humanity's most closely guarded secret, built in the shadows of the outer solar system, where no Concordat observation satellites could see. "Are we ready?" he asked. "No," Chun admitted. "But we're out of time. The raider fleet that hit New Perth is moving toward Armstrong Station. 8,000 colonists, Marcus. Most of them children. If we don't stop them now, if we don't make a statement that the galaxy can't ignore, ... She didn't finish. "She didn't need to. Asterisk. What do you need from me?" Marcus asked. "Clear the area around the assembly hall. Get every human vessel and station to broadcast. Evacuation warnings on all frequencies. Make it look like we're panicking, like we're running. Let them think we're cowards." "Let them think whatever they want," Chun said. "In 8 hours, they'll understand what we really are." The hologram flickered. In the background, Marcus could see the command center of the UESS Newton, humanity's largest warship, though even that dreadnought would be considered a frigate by Concordat standards. "The test target?" Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. "The raider fleet heading for Armstrong. 57 ships, all equipped with second-generation energy shields. The same shields Zorathil said make them invulnerable to kinetics." Chun's smile was cold. "We're going to teach the galaxy a physics lesson they apparently forgot. Asterisk, Admiral, if this works, humanity survives. If it doesn't, we lose Armstrong Station, and the Concordat will have another reason to mock us at the next council session." Marcus thought about the laughter in the assembly hall, the casual dismissal, the certainty that humanity was too primitive to matter. "Then it better work," he said. "It will," Chun replied. "We've triple-checked the calculations. The rails are charged. The targeting computers have been running simulations for 6 months. Everything is ready, except for the part where we're about to terrify every power in the galaxy." Chun's expression softened slightly. "They should have helped us, Marcus. They should have listened when we asked nicely. They should have cared when our children were dying. I know. Asterisk. Now they'll learn what happens when you force humanity to solve problems alone. When you leave us no choice but to get creative with the tools we have. Marcus looked out the privacy alcove window at the stars that humanity had dreamed of reaching for millennia. They'd finally gotten here, only to find the neighborhood already claimed, already divided, already convinced of its own superiority. Godstrike, he said softly. I hope that name isn't too accurate. So do I, Sean admitted. But either way, the galaxy is about to discover that kinetic weapons aren't primitive. They're just underestimated. And there's a significant difference. The connection terminated. Marcus stood alone in the alcove, watching distant stars and thinking about physics equations that every first-year student learned. Kinetic energy equals 1/2 mass times velocity squared. Asterisk. Simple mathematics. Elementary physics, the kind of knowledge that ancient civilizations apparently forgot when they became too sophisticated for their own good. In 7 hours and 43 minutes. The galaxy would remember, and the laughter would stop forever. Asterisk the awakening, the Raider Fleet Omega-7 moved through space with predatory confidence. 57 ships arranged in a standard Wolf-Pack formation, energy shields glowing with the characteristic blue shift of second-generation barrier technology. Their target, Armstrong Station, an isolated human colony on the edge of civilized space. Easy prey, undefended, profitable. Captain Vrek of the lead destroyer Ravager's Claw monitored the approach with satisfaction. Humans were cowards. Half their stations were already evacuating, broadcasting panic on all frequencies. The Concordat had abandoned them. This would be simple. Shields at maximum, Vrek ordered. Prepare plasma lances. When we're in range, the tactical officer made a confused gesture. Captain, I'm detecting a power surge. Origin ... impossible. It's coming from beyond Jupiter's orbit. That's 70 away. Sensor ghost, Vrek dismissed. Nothing can threaten us from that distance. On the lunar far side, hidden in a crater that had never seen Earth's light, Rail Station Alpha hummed with barely contained energy. 300 meters of superconducting magnetic coils, cooled to within fractions of absolute zero. A fusion reactor, powering electromagnetic fields that could crush matter into neutronium. And at the firing chamber's heart, a tungsten penetrator. 30 centimeters long, 8 centimeters wide. 5 kilograms of the hardest metal humanity could manufacture. Admiral Chun stood in the command bunker 3 kilometers away, watching through drone cameras and instrument readouts. Around her, 200 engineers and officers held their collective breath. Rail station reports full charge, the weapons officer announced. Target lock confirmed. Projectile loaded. We have a firing solution. Time to target? Chun asked. 8 minutes, 17 seconds after launch. 8 minutes. In that time, light would travel 149 million kilometers. Their projectile would travel slightly less, but not much less. Chun thought about the Concordat's laughter, about Zorathil's dismissive words, about 47,000 human dead and council members who couldn't be bothered to care. Fire, she said. The moon shuddered. Every seismometer on the lunar surface registered the shock. Magnetic fields of such intensity compressed that they created gravitational anomalies. Energy measured in petawatts channeled through coils that had cost more than humanity's entire space program up to that moment. And the tungsten penetrator, carefully shaped, precisely balanced, perfectly aligned, accelerated. In the first microsecond. It reached Mach 10. In the first millisecond. Mach 100. After 2 full seconds of acceleration through 300 meters of magnetic rail, the projectile exited the launcher at 2c 20% of light. Speed, 60,000 kilometers per. Second dot 1-fifth, the speed that made the universe. Absolute. The projectile's surface temperature reached 100,000 degrees from atmospheric. Friction during the brief moment it passed through the trace wisps of lunar exosphere. Then it was in space, in vacuum, conserving its energy with the perfect efficiency that only the void can provide. Behind it, Rail Station Alpha's cooling systems went into emergency mode. The barrel was glowing white-hot despite its cooling jacket. Engineers were already calculating the recharge time, 90 minutes minimum before a second shot. They wouldn't need a second shot dot in the command bunker. Chung watched the countdown. Time to impact, 8 minutes, 9 seconds. Across the solar system, every human vessel and station had been warned, cleared, moved to safe distances. But the Concordat's observation network, vast array of deep space satellites and monitoring, stations that watched everything, that missed nothing, that had tracked humanity's every move for 50 years, remained in place. No one had warned them. No one had thought they needed warning. Aboard the Ravager's Claw, Tactical Officer Drenninix frowned at his instruments. Captain, that power surge is... It's getting closer. Velocity is... No, that can't be right. What's the velocity? Freck demanded. 0.2 c, sir. But that's impossible. Nothing travels at... Check your instruments. Recalibrate. Sir, I've recalibrated 3 times. There's an object approaching our position at 60,000 kilometers per second. Mass approximately 5 kilograms. Energy signature is... Captain, the kinetic energy reading is... Vreck pulled up the data himself. Stared at the numbers. Felt something cold settle in his thorax. 5 kilograms at 0.2 c. Got the kinetic energy equation was simple. K equals 1/2 mv squared. At those velocities, at 5 kilogram projectile carried 1.810, 17 joules. 43 megatons of energy from a piece of metal weighing less than a human child. Evasive action. Vreck screamed. All ships, scatter pattern Delta. Emergency FTL. Initiate. The warning came 3 seconds before impact. Light from the projectile. Photons that had bounced off its surface 8 minutes ago reached the fleet's sensors. 3 seconds later, traveling at 0.2 c, the projectile itself arrived. It hit the Ravager's Claw in the forward section. Just ahead of the bridge, the second-generation energy shield, designed to deflect plasma bolts and dissipate laser fire, might as well have not existed. The projectile passed through it like it wasn't there, because energy shields worked by redirecting charged particles and photons. Tungsten was neither punched through the forward armor, through 3 interior bulkheads, through the reactor containment vessel, through the aft section, and out the other side, barely slowed. The ship's structure, suddenly subjected to forces it was never designed to handle, came apart. The reactor breach added its own energy to the destruction. In the span of a single heartbeat, the Ravager's Claw went from a functioning warship to an expanding cloud of plasma and debris. The tungsten penetrator, having shed perhaps 5% of its velocity, continued on its trajectory into the destroyer, behind the Ravager's Claw, through it, into the cruiser behind that, through it. The projectile passed through. 7 ships before its velocity dropped below the threshold needed to penetrate energy shields and armor. By then, it didn't matter. 7 ships were gone. Their debris fields, expanding at significant fractions of orbital velocity, created a shrapnel storm that tore into nearby vessels. Secondary explosions rippled through the formation. Reactors breached. Fuel cells ignited. Ships tried to scatter, colliding with each other in their panic. The Wolf-Pack formation that had been so confident minutes ago dissolved into chaos. In 90 seconds. 57 ships became 57 debris fields. The projectile, its energy finally spent, tumbled through space. It would continue on that trajectory forever, or until gravity eventually pulled it into a star. A 5-kilogram memorial to the day everything changed, but the destruction wasn't finished. Asterisk. The battle, if it could even be called that, had occurred at a carefully calculated position. Behind the Raider fleet, positioned along the projectile's trajectory, sat Observation Station Phaeton 9, one of 37 satellites in the Concordat's Deep Space Monitoring Network. The station's AI registered the incoming debris field, calculated trajectories, activated defensive measures. Too late. The high-velocity fragments pieces of destroyed Raiders, still carrying significant kinetic energy, struck the observation station like a shotgun blast. Armor crumpled, sensors shattered, and the station's main reactor, designed with multiple redundancies and safety systems, went critical. The explosion was visible from Earth. More importantly, it was visible from the Concordat Assembly Hall in his private quarters. Ambassador Marcus Reeves watched the telemetry with something between awe and horror. The test had worked. God help them. It had worked beyond even the most optimistic projections. His communicator erupted with incoming calls. Every Concordat ambassador simultaneously demanding answers. He ignored them all except one. Ambassador Reeves, came Zorathil's voice, the Keithan's thoughts no longer amused. What have you done? We defended ourselves, Marcus replied calmly. As you suggested we should, using the technology we have. Asterisk, you destroyed an observation station. That's an act of collateral damage from defending against Raiders, Marcus interrupted. The same Raiders that were about to massacre 8,000 human colonists. The same Raiders whose attacks we've been reporting for over a year. The ones you said we should handle ourselves. Silence. Then, that weapon. What was that weapon? A kinetic projectile. A metal slug. The primitive technology you've been mocking for 50 years. Impossible. Kinetics can't penetrate modern shields. Your shields stop energy, Marcus explained patiently. They deflect charged particles. They're useless against solid matter traveling at relativistic velocities. That's basic physics, Magistrate. Perhaps your civilization has been using energy weapons so long that you forgot the fundamentals. More silence. Marcus could almost hear Zorathil's thoughts racing, calculating, understanding the implications. How fast? The key then finally asked. 0.2 c, 20% of light speed. Accelerated through electromagnetic rail. The energy requirements are well within our industrial capacity. We've been building fusion reactors and superconducting coils for 3 centuries. We just never bothered telling you that our primitive cargo launchers and mining equipment could be repurposed as weapons. How many? Zorathil's voice was very quiet now. How many what? How many of these? Railguns do you have? Marcus smiled, though Zorathil couldn't see it. That's classified. But I can tell you this. Every cargo mass driver in the Sol system can be converted to a weapons platform within 48 hours. Every mining rail on the Moon, Mars, and the asteroid belt. Every ore launcher at our Lagrange stations. We've been building civilian infrastructure for 100 years, Magistrate. It turns out that the same technology that moves cargo efficiently also makes an excellent weapons system. The implications rippled across the quantum encrypted channel. Marcus could practically hear Zorathil calculating. Thousands of potential launchers. Millions of projectiles. All capable of being accelerated to velocities that made conventional defenses meaningless. This is a threat, Zorathil said. This is a capability, Marcus corrected. One we'll use to defend our people, since the Concordat won't. We're not interested in conquest. We're not interested in territory. We're interested in being left alone. And now we have the means to ensure that. Within the hour, emergency sessions convened across the galaxy. The Keith and Hegemony, the Vrin Collective, the Hierophant Communion, the Architect Assembly. Every major power suddenly demanded answers to the same question. How do we defend against weapons that ignore our defenses? Koth, chief strategist for the Hegemony's military, ran the simulations repeatedly. Each time, the results were the same. Energy shields, useless. Point defense lasers, too slow to track relativistic projectiles. Evasive maneuvers, pointless when the enemy could fire from 70 away. We're vulnerable, Koth reported to the Hegemony Council. All of us. Every species that abandoned kinetic warfare is now defenseless against it. We'd need to redesign our entire defensive doctrine. Layered armor instead of shields. Distributed hull structures. Point defense kinetics to intercept incoming kinetics. It would take decades to retrofit our fleets. And humanity? Asked the High Chancellor. Humanity spent centuries perfecting kinetic weapons because they never had access to anything else. While we were developing increasingly sophisticated energy systems, they were solving the engineering problems of magnetic acceleration, projectile stability, and target tracking. They're a century ahead of us in a field we abandoned 8,000 years ago. Recommendations? Koth's response was immediate. Don't make them angry. The same conversation repeated across the galaxy. In throne rooms and council chambers, on generation ships and stellar habitats, the realization spread like a shock wave. Humanity wasn't primitive. They were specialized. And their specialty had just made every conventional military force in the galaxy obsolete. 3 days after the test, the Concordat Council convened in emergency session. This time, Ambassador Reeves wasn't standing alone in the center of the chamber. The entire human delegation was present, and the chamber's seating had been rearranged. Humanity's position had moved from the outer, ring reserved for minor species, to the inner circle. Next to the founding powers, Zorathil spoke for the Concordat. The Council has reviewed humanity's demonstration. We have. Reconsidered our previous position. Have you? Marcus asked mildly. Your defense requests are approved. Full Concordat protection will be extended to all human colonies and vessels. The raider syndicates will be eliminated within 30 days. Furthermore, humanity is hereby granted a permanent seat on the Security Council. In exchange for? Marcus prompted. In exchange for not turning your entire solar system into a weapons platform aimed at the rest of the galaxy. Marcus smiled. Magistrate, our solar system already is a weapons platform. That won't change. What will change is how we use it. We're willing to enter into mutual defense treaties, non-aggression pacts, technology sharing agreements. But we will not disarm, ever. You're holding the galaxy hostage, accused Ambassador Thelshar. No, Marcus replied. We're ensuring that no one ever again dismisses human deaths as acceptable losses. We're ensuring that when we ask for help, we're taken seriously. We're ensuring that our children can grow up on colony worlds without wondering when the next raid will come. He stood, facing the assembled powers. You mocked us for using kinetics. You laughed at our primitive weapons. You told us to modernize, to abandon our backwards technology. But we couldn't afford your energy weapons. We couldn't mine your exotic matter. We couldn't tap zero-point energy. So we worked with what we had. And you turned it into a weapon that makes our defenses meaningless, Zorathil said. We turned it into a weapon that works, Marcus corrected. Simple, reliable, unstoppable. You've spent millennia developing energy weapons and energy defenses, locked in an arms race with each other. You forgot that the simplest solution is often the most effective. And now? Asked Erval of the Hierophant Communion. Now we have mutual respect, Marcus said. You respect our capability. We respect that you could, given time and resources, develop your own kinetic systems. Neither of us wants war. So we'll have peace instead. But it will be a peace built on understanding, not dismissal. On fear, not mockery. The chamber was silent. Then, one by one, the ambassadors signaled their agreement. The vote was unanimous. Humanity was granted full Security Council status. The raider syndicates were eliminated. Human colonies received the same protection as core worlds, and the galaxy began the slow, expensive process of redesigning their defenses to account for a type of warfare they thought obsolete. That night, Marcus stood in his quarters aboard the human embassy ship, looking out at the stars. Admiral Chun's face appeared in a hologram. "We did it," Chun said simply. "We survived," Marcus corrected. "That's not the same thing." "Close enough. The Council estimates it'll take them 20 years to develop effective kinetic defenses. By then, we'll have improved our systems. We've bought humanity time to grow, to establish ourselves, to become truly powerful instead of just dangerous." Marcus nodded slowly. "The cost? Every civilization in the galaxy now fears us. Fears what we can do. Fears that one day we might decide defense isn't enough. Will we?" Chun was quiet for a moment. "That depends on whether they remember this lesson, on whether they treat us as equals or just as threats to be contained, on whether they realize that we don't want to conquer, we just refuse to be victims. And if they forget, then they'll learn again," Sean said. "Humanity is very good at teaching lessons. We've had practice." The hologram faded. Marcus stood alone, watching stars that no longer seemed so distant, so impossible, so dismissive. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was adjusting to a new reality. One where the newest species, the youngest species, the supposedly primitive species, had changed the rules of warfare through sheer determination and physics that any first-year student could understand. Kinetic energy equals 1/2 mass times velocity squared. Simple math. Elementary physics. Ancient knowledge. The kind that civilizations apparently forgot when they grew too sophisticated. The galaxy would remember now. The laughter had stopped, and in its place, respect, fear, and the understanding that humanity dismissed, mocked, underestimated, would never be ignored again. 5 kilograms of tungsten had rewritten galactic politics. And humanity had only just begun. Asterisk.